Hello, friends. A very warm welcome to you all in today's session on Indian polity. My name is Sohail Yusuf, and today I'm going to take up a very important lecture as far as Indian polity is concerned. But before I take up the main lecture, I would like to take you back into the history. The year is 2005, and a high-profile cricket series was about to begin between arch rivals India and Pakistan, but out came the government ruling stating that the cricketers cannot wear the national flags on their kits or on their uniforms or on their cricketing gears, thereby prohibiting or preventing Sachin Tendulkar from wearing the flag on the helmet and and also prohibiting Saurav Ganguly from wearing the traditional which he used to wear the gloves bearing the tricolor color. Now, the other incident is recent, which is of December 2016. In December 2016, a committee, a bench headed by Justice Deepak Mishra, gave a ruling that national anthem should be played before screening of the movies, and not only national anthem should be played, but all the audiences should stand up as a mark of respect for the national anthem, and the exit gates have to be sealed while national anthem is being played. Now, why I started with these two specific instances? Because they have got a great relevance as far as today's topic is concerned. The topic which we are going to take up today is fundamental particular topic of Indian polity. Now let's start with what are the learning objectives or what are the takeaways of this particular lecture. The learning objectives or what you can gain from this particular lecture is, firstly, you will be able to understand what fundamental duty is, right? So आपको fundamental duty क्या होती है इसके बारे में पता चलेगा. What are our fundamental duties? They are 11 in number. There were 10 when the Sardar Swaran Singh committee gave the recommendations to the government, but later on one more was added, and you are going to understand the importance of the Sardar Swaran Singh committee and the recommendations of the Sardar Swaran Singh committee. Why was Sardar Swaran Singh committee important, and how many how many fundamental duties did it put forth to the government of that time? Were there additions or were deletions in the number? What were the additions and deletions in the number that was provided, a number of duties that was provided by the Sardar Swaran Singh committee? Then we're going to understand that what is the difference between fundamental duties and fundamental rights. And apart from this, we're going to also we were going to also learn about the list of the fundamental duties, and I'm going to give you the tricks that help you will be able to remember fundamental duties in a better way. And also we're going to talk about the importance and the features. Apart from that, we'll be also talking about the importance, features, and criticism of the fundamental duties, right? And we'll be taking a few questions at the end of this lecture, which I believe the probability is very high that they might come in this year's mains. And apart from that, we'll also take up one or two questions for the discussion as far as the prelims is concerned. Now let's begin with the introduction. Now, fundamental duties, basically they are fundamental. Fundamentals, when you refer to something as fundamental, fundamental का मतलब होता है बुनियादी, right? So when you are referring something to as being fundamental, it means that they are essential, they are pivotal for a certain thing, right? जैसे कि हमारे part 3 में, the part 3 of our constitution contains a list of fundamental rights. Now, fundamental rights, they are described as being the Magna Carta of the Indian Constitution. और न सिर्फ ये बल्कि fundamental rights are important because they are fundamental, because they are necessary for the all-round development, that is physical, moral, and spiritual development of an individual. Similarly, fundamental duties are also essential. They are not the duties which are given to the government, they are the duties or obligations on part of citizens towards the state, right? आपकी कुछ duties हैं, आपके कुछ फराइज हैं. It is necessary that if you are being provided with certain rights, if constitution provides you certain rights, it expects you to perform certain duties in lieu of these rights, right? अगर आप उन rights को if you are not performing those duties in a right manner, or if you are ignoring those duties, then it can lead to chaos in the country, then it can lead to disintegration of the country. I would tell you how. Now, fundamental duties are moral obligations of all citizens to help and promote the spirit of patriotism and uphold unity and integrity of India. Now, imagine a scenario where nobody respects the constitution, nobody abides the constitution, nobody respects the national flag and national anthem, right? Nobody gives a damn to the to the derogatory, or passes livid remarks to the women, and nobody cares about the developing scientific temper which is contained in the fundamental duties itself. अब ऐसे scenario में it will create a situation where there will be lawlessness, where there will be anarchy, where nobody will listen to anyone, because constitution is the supreme law of the land. If you are not abiding by the constitution, then ultimately you are abiding by nothing, and you are creating a situation where you are creating a material for the disintegration of the country. That is why fundamental duties are essential, they are pivotal for maintenance of the unity and integrity of the country. You abide by there should be respect in your heart for the national flag, for the constitution, for the national anthem, and nobody else should tell you that do this and do that. You should do it by yourself. If you are not doing by yourself, then there is a lesser level of patriotism in you for your country. So it is very important that you have to abide by these, and that is why they are fundamental. The next thing is that they were not part of the original constitution. The original constitution original constitution did not contain the provisions for the original constitution. There was no provision regarding the fundamental duties, because the framers of the constitution felt that if we are providing the rights to the citizens, they expected it that naturally the citizens have to oblige by performing certain duties. So there was no explicit mention of the fundamental duties in the original constitution. The need and necessity was felt during the time of internal emergency, when there was when public property was damaged, and when certain other events occurred, and as a result of which a committee was framed, which was known as Sardar Swaran Singh Committee. The Sardar Swaran Singh Committee was inspired from they were basically inspired from the constitution of USSR. ठीक है, जो USSR का constitution है, तो वो उनसे inspire होके उन्होंने फिर they gave recommendations to the government regarding the fundamental duties, right? और उसी के basis पे then there was 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act was framed, and 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act basically is also known as 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act को क्या कहते हैं? Yes, it is also known as one second. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act is also known as the mini constitution, right? इसको mini constitution कहा जाता है because of the widespread changes that it has brought in the Indian constitution. As we have already said, that Sardar Swaran Singh Committee was inspired by the fundamental duties which were mentioned in the erstwhile constitution of the USSR. Now, it is not that only India has got fundamental duties. The major nations of the world, right? 50 major nations of the world have got the fundamental duties as being part of their constitution, but all of them are, in one way or other way, they are the socialistic countries, right? जैसे कि जो मेजर डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्रीज कोई है, तो वो सिर्फ जापान है जिन्होंने फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज को इंक्लूड किया है. बाकी जितने सारे नेशंस है, और इंडिया अपार्ट फ्रॉम इट, बाकी जितने सारे नेशंस है, दे आर मोर और लेस सोशलिस्टिक इन नेचर. लाइक जापान हो गया, युगोस्लाविया हो गया, चाइना हो गया. जापान तो डेमोक्रेटिक है, बट युगोस्लाविया एंड चाइना, दे आर मोर सोशलिस्टिक. ठीक है. none of the constitution of the major democratic countries specifically contain fundamental duties except Japan, जैसे कि मैंने पहले ही कहा था आपसे. इसके अलावा जो socialistic countries हैं, they have given equal importance to fundamental duties and the rights of citizens. But जो कि democratic countries है, why didn't they include the fundamental duties? Because of the fact that they felt that their citizens are conscious enough, their citizens are aware enough that if the rights are being provided to them, it is necessary that कि जो मतलब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो ऑटोमेटिकली आपसे एक्सपेक्ट करता है कि आप सर्टेन ड्यूटीज को परफॉर्म करो जो कि कंट्री की बेटरमेंट के लिए या सोसाइटी की बेटरमेंट के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो दे फैक्ट दैट देयर सिटीजंस आर कॉन्शियस एनफ एंड दे नीड नॉट टू बी you know reminded of the duties which they have to perform. They will perform their duties anyway, right? That is why they did not include the fundamental duties on in their constitutions, right? And finally, they help in furthering the national interest and integration of our composite culture, which I have already said how they do this. Fundamental duties reference is also found in the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. उसमें भी इसका जिक्र fundamental duties का पाया जाता है. Now, what was Sardar Swaran Singh Committee and why were its recommendations important? The Sardar Swaran Singh Committee was set up by Congress government in the year 1976 and in year 1976 and they recommended the inclusion of the separate chapter on fundamental duties in the constitution. The recommendations, they were accepted by the government and they enacted the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, जिसको कि मैंने अभी कहा mini constitution भी कहा जाता है. 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976 is also known as mini constitution because of the widespread changes that it has brought in the Indian Constitution. Now, the ruling Congress had at that time declared that the non-inclusion of the fundamental duties by the framers of the Constitution was a historical mistake, a grave mistake, and that mistake is now being corrected by including the fundamental duties. Basically, Sardar Swaran Singh Committee was of the opinion that citizens have to be reminded of the duties which they have to perform in lieu of the rights which the Constitution gives to them, and that is why they basically put forth this they put forth the fundamental duties. And committee suggested the Sardar Swaran Singh Committee, they suggested the inclusion of or incorporation of 8 fundamental duties, but 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act made it to 10. That is, only 8 duties were suggested by the government by the Sardar Swaran Singh Committee. लेकिन जो गवर्नमेंट है उन्होंने उसको बढ़ा के फिर 10 कर दिया. लेकिन जो कुछ इम्पोर्टेंट रिकमेंडेशंस थी सरदार स्वरण सिंह की उनको ड्रॉप किया गया. तो किन किन को ड्रॉप किया गया? एक तो सर्टेन रिकमेंडेशंस जिनको एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया वो था कि दैट देयर विल बी पनिशमेंट बाय द पार्लियामेंट इन केस ऑफ नॉन परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ सर्टेन ड्यूटीज, राइट? और वो जो पनिशमेंट देंगे उन सिटीजन्स को या उन इंडिविजुअल्स को जो कि वायलेट करते हैं या जो फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज को परफॉर्म नहीं करते हैं, उसको किसी कोर्ट में क्वेश्चन नहीं किया जाएगा. अब जब पहला ड्रॉप होगा तो दूसरा तो ऑटोमेटिकली फिर उसके साथ ही जाएगा. और तीसरा, the duty to pay taxes was made fundamental duties, which was it was recommended to make it a fundamental duty, but government later on they were happy to drop it because of certain reasons, of course. Now now we'll take up another very important topic, that what is the difference between the fundamental duties and the fundamental rights. Now the first thing is that is their inclusion. Fundamental rights, as we know, have been included in the part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. Part 3rd may be from Article 12 to 35, right? Lekin jo fundamental duties hai, they have been added in the part 4A of the Constitution from a single article है इसका जो कि 51A जिसे हम कहते हैं. Apart from this, जो fundamental rights हैं, they are available to both aliens and citizens. अब alien का मतलब यहाँ पर जादू वाला alien नहीं है, बल्कि alien का मतलब वो alien होता है यानी कि जो इंडिया का citizen नहीं है. अब aliens जो है, we know there are 2 types. There are friendly aliens and there are enemy aliens. Friendly aliens हो गया, suppose we have got good relations with US, so the citizens of US are friendly aliens. We have got our relations are not quite good with Pakistan and China, so whoever citizen of Pakistan or China is in India, they will be considered as enemy aliens. So fundamental rights are available to both aliens as well as citizens, while as fundamental duties are only uh, meant for the citizens, right? The second thing is fundamental rights are justiciable in court. That is, in case of the violation of your fundamental rights, you can directly approach to Supreme Court, or you can directly go to the Supreme Court or High Court. Supreme Court might issue different types of writs for implementation of your, for implementation of your rights. But fundamental duties are non-justiciable. You cannot go to the court for their implementation, or you cannot. In fact, there are no legal sanctions for non-performance of the duties. However, Parliament can make specific laws dealing with the separate duty in a separate manner. Like they have made laws regarding the honor of the national anthem. Similarly, or नेशनल ऑनर इंसल्ट टू नेशनल ऑनर एक्ट एक बनाया गया है 1971 जिसके अंदर there is punishment for insulting the national flag or national anthem on constitution. Similarly, there are acts like wildlife act has been made for prevention of the wildlife and environment. तो ऐसे laws बनाए गए, specific laws बनाए गए पार्लियामेंट में ताकि जो मतलब ताकि जो अगर कोई ड्यूटी परफॉर्म ना करे उसको फिर उसी हिसाब से they deal with them. Now, second thing is that it is the government's fundamental rights is basically government's obligation to the citizens of the democracy, and the fundamental duty is the citizens' obligation, right? Fundamental rights जो है ये government की obligation, ये government को कुछ करना है for the citizens, but fundamental duty is the citizens' obligation towards the government, right? Towards the state, towards the government. Now, fundamental rights, they are automatically enforceable. You cannot, you do not need separate legislations for their enforceability. You do not need to make separate laws. They are automatically enforceable, like Article 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. They are all automatically enforceable. But you have to make laws for enforcement of the fundamental duties. These are the four major differences between the fundamental rights and fundamental duties. Now, let's move on and talk about another very important topic, which is, of course, the main topic of this particular lecture. That is the list of fundamental duties. Now, there are 11 duties, but the problem is that since the list is long, and UPSC sometimes asks you directly a question that once it was asked that enumerate the list of fundamental duties as enshrined in the part 4A of the Indian Constitution. तो अगर आपको ऐसा list दिया जाता है, what you can do at that time is that you have to memorize it, obviously, because there are questions which are directly asked in the UPSC, in the state civil services, or in other similar competitive examinations, whether it is SSC or CGL or any other IBPS examination. They will ask you simply that whether this particular right or duty is a fundamental duty or not. Like there might be options given: duty to pay taxes is a fundamental duty or not, or family planning is a fundamental duty or not, or to abide by the ideals of the Constitution is a fundamental duty or not. So you must remember all these 11 duties, but it is very difficult to remember them. That is why I have developed a mnemonic, not mnemonic, but a rhyme, and you can remember it through this particular rhyme. Now, firstly, let's go and talk about what are the list of fundamental duties. The first one is that you have to abide by the Constitution and respect the ideals and institutions, the national flag and national anthem. The second one is that you have to cherish and follow the noble ideas that inspired the national struggle for freedom. The third thing is that you have to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India. The fourth thing is that you have to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. Fifth thing is that you have to promote the spirit of common brotherhood amongst the people of all India, transcending the religious, linguistic, regional, sectional diversities, and renounce practices which are derogatory to the dignity of women. The sixth thing is that you have to value and preserve the rich heritage of country's composite culture. And another thing is that you have to protect and improve the natural environment, including forest, lake, rivers, wildlife, and have compassion for living creatures, right? Another one, to develop scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of inquiry and reform, to safeguard the public property and abjure violence, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that nation collectively rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement, and to provide, which was the latest amendment, it was added through 86th Amendment 2002, that is to provide opportunities for education to his child or ward between 6 to 14 years of age. Now, since this is pretty difficult, pretty long list, and it is very difficult to remember, so we'll try to make it, we will try to make it fun by making a rhyme, which is 1 is sun, 2 is shoe, 3 is tree, 4 is board, 5 is high, 6 is stick, 7 is heaven, 8 is gate, 9 is line, and 10 is hen. Now, if you remember this rhyme, you'll be able to remember the whole list and other lists which are there in Indian polity. Now, let's imagine that 1 is sun, right? Now, what does this 1 is sun remember? Imagine that you are standing in a playground, right? As kids, you were standing in the playground. There was this national flag which is hoisted and it is flying high, and there is the national anthem which is being played in this particular ground while you are standing, and your principal is holding a constitution book in his hand. Now, what this particular scenario will make you remember is, one second, this particular scenario will make you remember that you have to abide by the constitution and respect the ideals and institutions, the national flag and national anthem. So once you will remember that, suppose 1 is sun, right? 1 is sun. अब इस 1 is sun से आपको remember आएगा that you as a kid were standing in a ground, and वहाँ पे एक national flag, मतलब it was waving, national flag was waving, national anthem was being played, and your principal was holding a constitution book in your hand. तो इस sun was shining brightly in that particular ground. तो इससे आपको ये सारा scenario, you have to somehow relate it. I mean, it is very difficult to remember otherwise, but if you remember it this way, it will be easier to remember for you. Now, the 2 is shoe. What will you, 2 is shoe. Because 2 is shoe. So, अब इस shoe से आपको याद आएगा, suppose you have polished your shoe and, a very good shoe you have got, and you're going to cherish something in a particular restaurant. You're going to for a meal in a particular restaurant. अब अगर आपको ये word cherish याद आ गया उस time पे, right? Cherry polish से आपने अपने shoe को मतलब polish किया है, and you are going to the restaurant where your forefathers or where your grandfather used to go. So इससे आपको ये याद आएगा that 2 is shoe से आपको याद आएगा that I have to go to cherish and follow the noble ideas that inspire the freedom struggle. It is, you have to relate it somehow. You have to relate it in a different way. You have to create bizarre images in your mind in order to remember this thing. Now, 3 is tree. अब tree से आपको एक याद आएगा. Suppose there is a tree which is आप imagine कीजिए that this tree is a balloon है ये, ठीक है? Balloon tree which has been inflated, and there is a sui in your hand, that is S for sovereignty, U for unity, I for integrity, ठीक है? और आप इसको inflate करते हो, ठीक है? You have to uphold and protect this tree from sui, right? Sui का मतलब यहाँ पर ये होगा कि, or you can imagine a tree which has got different branches and which has got different fruit on it, different kinds of fruit on it, and they are all united, they are all integral, and they are all sovereign, right? The fourth thing is that you have to defend the country. So we were talking about that 3 is tree, right? Now 4, you can remember that 4 is boar, fine? 4 is boar. अब आप इस boar से आपको ये image दिमाग में आनी चाहिए that there is a strong boar and somebody is riding on it and he is rushing towards the border. एंड इससे आपको ये चीज़ याद आएगी दैट यू हैव टू डिफेंड द कंट्री एंड रेंडर द नेशनल सर्विस व्हेन कॉल्ड अपॉन टू डू सो. अब 5 is hive, right? 5 is hive. Now, is 5 is hive say you should remember one thing, that you have to promote the harmony, that hive consists of bees which are of different status, which are of different who have got different responsibilities, but they live with a common brotherhood, right? एक hive होती है, bee hive, right? It has got different sections, it has got queen, it has got soldiers, it has got other people who work in this particular hive. तो इस hive से आपको ये याद आना चाहिए that in hive there are different bees who live together, so but they live with common brotherhood, they do not have hatred for each other. ठीक है, they work for a common objective, all of them. And apart from that, you can also remember that they renounce that they do not involve themselves in eve teasing or things like that. हाई से आपको ये चीजें याद आ जाएगी तो काफी है. Now 6 is stick, right? 6 is, one second, 6 is stick. Up is 6 is stick say you should remember that, imagine this is Taj Mahal, right? अब ये ताज महल है तो somebody is scratching it with stick and you are trying to prevent him from doing so. That अब इससे आपको ये याद आएगा that you have to value and preserve the rich heritage of the country's composite. एक तो आपका जो heritage है, ठीक है, उसको prevent करना है, और जो आपका composite culture है उसको भी prevent करना है. You don't have to allow it to get damaged. 7 is heaven. Now, if you protect and improve 7 is, one second, 7 is heaven. अब इससे आपको ये याद आएगा that if you prevent your natural environment, if you protect your natural environment, if you work towards betterment of the lakes and rivers and wildlife, your country will truly become a heaven, because this is what heaven contains. It contains streams, it contains fruits, it contains the springs, and if you protect the environment, it's natural that your country will certainly look like a heaven, right? Now 8 is gate, right? 8 is gate. अब gate से आपको याद आना चाहिए that there is a test which is conducted by the authorities for engineering examination. ये gate graduate aptitude test for engineering conduct किया जाता है, तो इससे आपको ये याद आना चाहिए that yes, gate is conducted for engineering is scientific. तो आपको यहाँ से याद आएगा that you have to develop scientific temper, humanism and spirit of inquiry and reform. तो अगर आपको एक word भी याद आता है तो you can remember the line, full line, then you'll be able to memorize, you'll be able to remember the line. आप कभी कभार एग्जाम में अटक जाता है बंदा, तो you'll not be able to आप वो अटक नहीं जाओगे एग्जाम में, you'll be able to get few points even if not all, right? Then 9 is line, right? 9 is line. Now imagine a situation that where people who are, there are some people who are engaged in rioting, who are engaged in rioting and who are damaging the public property. What police does is they create a line of them all and then beat them up because they are damaging the public property, and they are beating them so that they will not dare to damage public property again, and they would absorb violence. अब इस लाइन से आपको ये सब चीज़ें याद आनी चाहिए कि लाइन है जहाँ पर कि सभी इन गुंडों को खड़ा किया गया है पुलिस ने और उनको पीट रही है ताकि because they were damaging the public property, right? अब इस लाइन से आपको ये चीज़ें याद आएगी. इसी तरीके से 10 is hen, right? 10 is hen. अब इस 10 is hen से आपको ये याद आएगा that hen जो है, hen gives eggs which are spherical, right? Hen gives eggs which are perfectly spherical in shape, तो which are excellent, which are spherical in shape. तो यहाँ पर आपको ये याद आएगा that you have to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. तो ये सब चीज़ें आपको याद आनी चाहिए यहाँ पर. और 11 ये तो latest हुआ है that you have to take your ward to for the education which is in between 6 to 14 years. It has been latest amendment, तो ये याद रहेगी. तो इस तरीके से you will be able to remember all these rights, which is that one is sun से आपको ये याद आना चाहिए that there is a beautiful playground and prayers are on, national anthem is being played, and a flag is flag is flowing with the wind, and apart from that there is principal who is holding the constitution book. So you'll be able to remember. Sun से आप इन सब चीजों को relate करोगे, that you are on a beautiful sunny day, you are sitting in the lawns of the school, and then there are these things happening. टू से आपको शू याद आएगा, शू से आपको याद आ जाएगा कि जो आपके बाप दादा जहाँ पर रेस्टोरेंट में जाते थे, यू आर गोइंग टू गो देयर फॉर हैविंग ए मील, टू चेरिश समथिंग, टू एंजॉय समथिंग, टू चेरिश अ sumptuous मील. अब आपको मील तो याद यहाँ पे नहीं रखना, बल्कि आपको ये याद रखना है दैट यू हैव टू चेरिश द आइडियल्स व्हिच वर that inspired the noble struggle. अब आपको चेरिश वर्ड याद आ जाएगा, तो उससे चेरिश वर्ड से ही आपको बाकी सारी चीजें भी याद आ जाएंगी. Third thing is to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. यहाँ से आपको ये याद आना चाहिए that there is a tree which is which is say a balloon inflated tree, and if somebody pricks it with a sui is for needle, S is sovereignty, U is in unity and integrity, it will get inflated, right? ये inflate हो जाएगा. मतलब हमने एक गुब्बारे का पेड़ बनाया है, अगर आप उसको कोई सुई चुभाएगा तो वो फिर फ्लैट हो जाएगा. तो यहाँ पर आपको ये याद रखना है, यहाँ पर आपको याद रखना है ट्री एंड सुई. तो ट्री और सुई से आपको याद आएगा दैट देयर इज सोवरेनिटी, यूनिटी एंड इंटीग्रिटी. 4 इज बोर. बोर पे आप एक स्ट्रॉन्ग बोर मतलब इमेजिन कीजिए जो कि रन कर रहा है ऑन द ग्राउंड, और which is running towards the border in order to you are running on it. आप उस पर चढ़ के दौड़ रहे हो टुवर्ड्स बॉर्डर इन ऑर्डर टू प्रोटेक्ट द कंट्री. 5 इज हाइव. हाइव मैंने कहा कि एक हाइव में अलग अलग स्टेटस, अलग अलग पोजीशंस के लोग होते हैं, ठीक है, और लोग मतलब जो है वो डिफरेंट पोजीशंस के होते हैं, बट स्टिल देयर इज ब्रदरहुड, देयर इज हार्मनी अमंग ऑल द बीज व्हिच आर इन द हाइव. तो इससे आपको ये याद आना चाहिए कि दैट we should promote harmony, brotherhood and renounce practices which are derogatory to the woman. क्वीन को कोई नहीं छेड़ता है भाई हाई में, ठीक है. तो the next thing is that you have to value the rich, value and preserve the rich heritage. अब आप स्टिक से आपको ये सब चीजें याद आए कि कोई स्टिक से खरोच कर रहा है ताजमहल को, तो आप उसको प्रिवेंट करो, नहीं करो, इसको मत छेड़ो. तो 7 is heaven. If we मतलब हम अपने नेचुरल एनवायरनमेंट को अगर वी आर प्रोटेक्टिंग इट, वी आर प्रिवेंटिंग इट, वी आर प्रिवेंटिंग द लेक्स, वाइल्ड लाइफ एंड वी हैव गॉट कंपैशन, विल बी आवर कंट्री विल बी ट्रूली हेवन. सो हेवन से आपको इंप्रूवमेंट इन नेचुरल एनवायरनमेंट आएगी समझ. नेचुरल एनवायरनमेंट में अगर इंप्रूवमेंट आती है तो सारी चीजें हेवन बन जाएगी. 8 इज गेट. गेट से आपको याद आएगा, गेट एक इंजीनियरिंग का टेस्ट होता है फॉर इंजीनियर्स, ठीक है. तो since it is related with science, तो scientific temper को हमें promote करना है, humanism, spirit and inquiry reform. 9 is line. line से आपको याद आएगा जो चीजें, जो लोग मतलब violence करते हैं तो उनको हम पुलिस जो है वो लाइन में खड़ा करके फिर पीटती है. then 9 is line is 10 is hen जो है वो excellent spherical अंडे डालती है. तो you have to remember it this, because you have to create bizarre images in your mind in order to remember it. This is the only way you can remember it. And 11 is regarding the right to education, and we have already discussed it. Now, what are the features of the fundamental rights? Now, the first thing is that some of them they are a mix of moral and civic duties. Some of them are moral duties like the respecting the national flag, national anthem, right? ये एक मतलब the cherishing the noble ideas of freedom, this is the moral duty, right? कुछ इसमें civic duties है, जैसे कि national anthem को respect करना, national flag को respect करना, these are the civic duties. Apart from that, it is the codification of the tasks which are integral to the Indian way of life. इसमें वही tasks है which are part of Indian mythology, Indian tradition, Indian culture, ठीक है. वो मतलब चीजें इसमें हैं which are part of the Indian mythology, ठीक है, जो इंडियन माइथोलॉजी या इंडियन ट्रेडिशन का पार्ट है. तो इसमें वो सब चीज़ें इंक्लूड की गई है, फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज़ में ये सब चीज़ें इंक्लूड की गई है. The third thing is that fundamental duties are confined only to citizens and they do not extend to foreigners. जो कि हमने जब हम differences डिस्कस कर रहे थे उसमें भी हमने कहा कि that fundamental duties are meant only for the citizens and not for the foreigners, right? Did not extend to the foreigners. एंड फोर्थ थिंग इज दैट दे आर नॉन जस्टिसेबल, जैसे कि जो डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ द स्टेट पॉलिसी है, डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ द स्टेट पॉलिसी आर आल्सो नॉन जस्टिसेबल. Non-justiciable, we have already discussed, means that you cannot go to the court for their enforceability. In fact, there are no legal sanctions for the fundamental duties. The only way is that Parliament makes specific legislations. जैसे कि हमने कहा that there is prevention of insults to the National Honor Act 1971. Similarly, Wildlife Act बनाए गए हैं, Protection of the Civil Rights Act बनाए गए हैं 1955. या राइट टू एजुकेशन बनाया गया. तो ये सारे एक्ट स्पेसिफिक एक्ट्स बनाए गए हैं ताकि इन सब ड्यूटीज को परफॉर्म किया जाए. ठीक है, इज इट क्लियर? सो देयर आर फोर थिंग्स, दैट इज देयर these duties, some of them are moral, some of them are civic, and it contains the tasks which are integral to the Indian way of life. Indian mythology का जो पार्ट है, Indian tradition का जो पार्ट है, ये वही टास्क इसमें रखे गए हैं. इसी तरीके से ये सिटीजन्स तक ही कन्फाइंड है, ये फॉरेनर्स को एक्सटेंड नहीं करते हैं, or they are non-justiciable in nature, which is one more very important thing. Now, what is the criticism of the fundamental duties? First thing is that the list is not exhaustive, which means that there are certain important tasks which have been not included in the fundamental duties. Like हमने कहा था कि right to pay taxes या duty to pay taxes. Duty to pay taxes should have been a fundamental duty. Family planning should have been a fundamental duty. Similarly, right to vote should or voting should have, to go for voting should have been a fundamental duty, but these have not been included as a fundamental duty. In fact, ये जो right to pay taxes, it was included in the इसको include किया गया था as a fundamental duty, but the government of that time, they later on rejected it. The next thing is that some of the duties are vague, ambiguous, and difficult to be understood by the common man, right? जैसे कि terms है, sorry, composite culture, ठीक है, composite culture, ठीक है, one second. To cherish the noble ideas of freedom. Now these are all very difficult, very vague and ambiguous terms, and आम आदमी इसको समझ नहीं पाएगा ये क्या है. Composite culture का क्या मतलब है, cherish क्या होता है, to cherish the ideals of the noble, जो कि इंस्पायर करते हैं. तो ये सारी चीजें जो है, these are very vague, ambiguous, and these are very difficult for a common man to understand. The third thing is that they are non-justiciable. Since they are non-justiciable, they are described as only mere moral principles. In fact, Sardar Sovereign Singh Committee have recommended that there should be punishment to those who do not perform the fundamental duties. But since it was not accepted by the government, they have been now left only to be the moral precepts because of its non-justiciable nature. Nobody will go to the court for its implementation, or there is no punishment as such recommended by the constitution for its non-performance. तो ये moral precepts के तौर पे रह गए हैं. Now, inclusion of the fundamental duties in the constitution has been considered as the superfluous because of the fact that people will perform it even if it is not in the constitution. लोग इसको तब भी perform करेंगे अगर constitution में नहीं होते, right? The fifth thing is that critics say that the inclusion of fundamental rights as in that fundamental duties को it has been an appendage to the constitution as part 4A. ठीक है, part 4A में ये मतलब है कि एक appendage के तौर पे ऐड किया गया है to the part 4 as part 4A. इसको part 3 के साथ ऐड करते तो इसकी significance, because fundamental duties है तो fundamental rights के साथ अगर इनका inclusion किया जाता, अगर part 3 के साथ ही इनको as part 3A ऐड किया जाता तो इसका value और importance जो है वो और बढ़ जाती. But since it has been added as part 4A, it has reduced its importance. This is what critics feel. However, there are many criticisms which we have looked into. There are significant things also, or it has got importance also. Fundamental duties are important because they serve as a gentle reminder to the citizens that apart from the duties, that if they have been given rights by the constitution, they have got certain obligations towards the society, towards the country, and towards the fellow brethren. And they serve as a they serve as a gentle reminder, right? They serve as a gentle reminder that they have certain duties which they have to perform in lieu of the rights which they have been given to them. And the next thing is that they serve as a warning against the anti-national and anti-social elements, because if they engage in the activities, then Parliament can have laws in place for their punishment, right? कोई नेशनल फ्लैग के साथ कुछ नहीं करेगा, कोई कम्युनल हार्मनी को ब्रेक करने की कोशिश नहीं करेगा, कोई मतलब नेशनल एंथम को डिसरिप्यूट नहीं करेगा या कोई नेशनल फ्लैग को डिसरिप्यूट नहीं करेगा. This was a warning to them, and they serve as a source of inspiration for the citizens, because once they have certain duties to perform, they will feel committed towards building a nation which is integral, which is united, and which is sovereign. They help in examining the courts in the constitutional validity of the law. Supreme Court in year 1992 एक जजमेंट आई थी in which it was referred कि अगर कोई ऐसा केस आता है जहाँ पर कि लगता है कि फंडामेंटल ड्यूटी जो है उसको इफेक्ट मिलेगा, तो वो उनको आर्टिकल 14 और आर्टिकल 19 के रिलेशन में लेगा और it will place them on par with article 14 and 19 and will give effect to that particular duty, right? Excuse me. They are enforceable by the law, which means that Parliament can provide for appropriate penalty or punishment for failure to fulfill them. इसका मतलब यह है कि non-justiciable is separate, but enforceability is separate. Non-justiciable is that you cannot go to the court for implementation of these duties, but they are enforceable through legislations which are made by the Parliament, and in case these laws are flouted, then there are penalties for those who flout these laws or who violate these laws. There have been several measures taken by the government to implement these duties. The first one is that there is this prevention of Prevention of National Honor Act 1971, which prevents the disrespect of the Constitution and of the national flag and national anthem. The second thing is that there are various criminal laws in force which provide for punishment for encouraging enmity on grounds of the different sections of language, race, caste, birth, etc. And there is this Protection of the Civil Rights Act 1955, which provides for punishment of offences related to caste and religion. The Unlawful Activities Act of 1967 provides for declaration of the communal organization. अगर कोई communal lines पे खड़ा करता है तो उसको unlawful declare करते हैं. Similarly, there is RPA, which Representation of People Act, which prohibits canvassing by the candidates on the basis of the religion. ठीक है, उससे उनको लगता है कि जो कंट्री है वो कास्ट लाइंस पे डिवाइड हो जाएगी. रिसेंटली गवर्नमेंट सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने भी एक ऑर्डर इशू किया है जहाँ पर कि वोट्स ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ religion can lead to termination of the candidate or can lead to the disqualification of the candidate, जो कि recently in January 2017 एक order Honorable Supreme Court ने issued किया. The seventh one is that the Wildlife Act of 1972 prohibits trade in rare and endangered species, which is for the prevention of the environment. And another very important thing is the Forest Conservation Act of 1980, which checks the indiscriminate deforestation and diversion of the forest land for the non-forest purposes. These are the acts which have been made, and there are several other acts which have been made by the government for the implementation of the fundamental duties. Now, there might be questions asked in this year's means, as I said at the introduction itself. Since in context of the ruling by the Supreme Court, which makes it mandatory to sing or play national anthem in cinema before the movie starts, do you think that the fundamental, this is the contempt of fundamental duties, and precedents have been given to fundamental, brushing aside fundamental rights and the directive principle of state policy, precedents have been given, or we can say that इम्पोर्टेंस दी गई है फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज को ज्यादा. अब इस पे क्रिटिकली कमेंट कीजिए इन 200 words. This might be a question and this is for you, for your practice. You have to write it in 200 words and you can mail it to me and I'll then check it. इसमें simple सी आपने introduction में ये लिखना है कि that why fundamental rights are important and why fundamental duties are important and why has government or why has Supreme Court given this ruling regarding the regarding singing of the national anthem. And then you have to critically comment on both. That is, critically comment करने का मतलब आपने वो दोनों sides को present करना है, positive भी, right, और negative को भी. तो आपने इनको दोनों point of view से present करना है. You have to make an introduction, start with comparing both fundamental duties and fundamental rights. And then, जैसे कि हमने कहा कि fundamental rights are more important as compared to fundamental duties. So they should not be given importance. They should not be given more importance than the fundamental rights. तो आपने कुछ incidents को quote करना है जहाँ पर fundamental rights को violate किया गया और Supreme Court was silent on them. You have to make a comparison between these two and then write. और एक क्वेश्चन मतलब यूपीएससी ने पूछा था पीछे, वहाँ पर सिंपल से सीधे ही पूछा था कि that you have to list the fundamental duties which are enshrined in the part 4A of the Constitution. सीधे पूछा था, तो उसमें आपने सीधे वो लिस्ट जैसे कि हमने राइम के थ्रू याद किया था, तो वो सीधे आपने उसमें मतलब पॉइंट्स डालने हैं, तो you will get all the points. Now another question could be asked that though fundamental duty has been added as an appendage to the Constitution in part 4A, yet importance of the fundamental duties, यहाँ पर ये नहीं लिखा है, यहाँ पर होना चाहिए fundamental, one second, duties. Fundamental duties cannot be ignored. You have to critically comment on it. तो ये भी एक आपका क्वेश्चन हो जाएगा. You have to simply इसमें जो significance है fundamental duties की जो हमने अभी कहा कि that they serve as a reminder to the people for performance of these duties. They help in constitutional validity of the laws, right? तो ऐसे ही आपने उनको important points जो है उनको summarize करके 200 words में लिखना है, तो ये कोई ना मसला नहीं होता है. Now prelims में question आ सकता है that consider the following statement about the fundamental duties. Fundamental duties were originally part of the Constitution. This is the first statement. The second one is duty to pay taxes is a fundamental duty. And third thing is that Sardar Sorensen Committee was roped in to formulate fundamental duties. Now the first thing is fundamental duties were originally part of the Constitution. जो कि हमने पढ़ा कि ये originally part of Constitution नहीं था. They were inserted by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. तो पहला तो पहले ही गलत हो गया, eliminate करना इसे. Then duty to pay taxes is fundamental duties, fundamental duty. ये सरदार सोरेनसन कमेटी ने रिकमेंड किया था, सरदार सोरेनसन कमेटी ने ये रिकमेंड किया था, but it is not a fundamental duty. गवर्नमेंट ने इसको फिर later on ड्रॉप किया. Now सरदार सोरेनसन कमेटी was roped in to formulate fundamental. Yes, सरदार सोरेनसन कमेटी को लाया गया था ताकि वो रिकमेंड कर सके फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज को. ठीक है, तो इसका आंसर जो है it will be only 3. Is it clear? Only 3 होगा इसका आंसर because only 3 is the correct one. Now, which among the following is or are fundamental duties? Duty to vote, duty to pay taxes, to develop scientific temper, humanism and spirit of inquiry and reform, and to have good sportsman spirit. अब ये तो नहीं है, ये भी नहीं है, ये भी नहीं है, तो खाली ये इसका आंसर आएगा. So I hope that today's lecture might have been fruitful for you because काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें जो हमने आज पढ़ी उसमें पहला जो है वो हमने fundamental duties के बारे में पढ़ा. That what are fundamental duties? Why are they called fundamental duties? Because of the fact that they help in patriotism, they help in sovereignty, integrity, and unity of the country. That's why they are called fundamental. Then we remembered all the 11 fundamental duties. Then importance क्या है, criticism क्या है. All these things we discussed and features क्या है fundamental duties के, कुछ civic है, कुछ moral है. ठीक है, तो I hope that today's lecture was fruitful for you. We'll meet again in our next lecture. Till then, have a great time. Thank you.